You don't deserve recognition. That's what my manager said when the CEO praised his revolutionary algorithm during the all-hands meeting. The conference room smelled like coffee and ambition. I could hear applause echoing from the presentation screen. My director adjusted his tie. My teammates looked away. I tightened my grip on the notebook where I'd first sketched the concept 6 months ago, smoothed my navy blazer, and chose silence. No argument, no tears. I stood up and walked out into the San Francisco fog. 30 minutes later, the stock price jumped 12% and a resignation email hit every inbox. Here's what happened next. The San Francisco fog was thick that morning, the kind that smells like salt and broken dreams. My company Dataflow had chosen the downtown tower for its prestige, the kind of place where people took LinkedIn photos just to prove they'd made it. The glass boardroom overlooked the bay, lined with monitors displaying our latest metrics. Every seat inside gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Mine apparently didn't matter. I'd driven in early from Oakland, replaying my manager's last Slack message in my head. Please, Maya, no disruptions today. It's the big presentation. That was all I ever was to him. A warning label, a potential problem. Don't make waves. Don't take credit. Don't remind anyone there's a brilliant mind behind the code. Growing up in tech, we were the cliché you see in startup photos, the visible leader and the invisible contributor. David had the MBA and the confidence. I had the algorithms no one understood. He'd pitch and get promoted. I'd solve problems and get overlooked. HR said I was the reliable one. My director said I was a team player. Both meant the same thing. Invisible was convenient. The last time I saw them all celebrate was our Q3 launch 6 months ago. I remember the office smelling like pizza and energy drinks. David was in meetings with investors, and for once, the code felt alive. My manager asked me to grab some old documentation from the shared drive. Instead, I found David's private folder, edges soft from constant updates. I clicked through it, curious, until I realized every presentation began the same way: my innovative approach, my breakthrough thinking, my revolutionary concept. Not a single slide about me, not my research, not my name. When I asked why, my manager smiled like it was a silly question. You're behind the scenes, Maya. You don't need the spotlight. That night, I learned there are 2 kinds of forgotten: being overlooked and being erased. I thought about that folder as I walked toward the boardroom, heels clicking on polished concrete. Through the glass walls, I saw them preparing for the presentation. My manager in his expensive suit, David straightening his collar, and the CEO glowing with anticipation. David looked back once, saw me, and nodded the same way people nod at janitors they won't remember. The assistant intercepted me with her tablet. "You're Maya Chen?" she asked. "Yeah." Her professional smile faltered when she found my name. "You're listed as optional attendance." I laughed, waiting for her to correct herself. She didn't. Optional attendance. Not even required for my own algorithm's debut. I followed her gesture toward the back row by the supply closet. From there, I could see the entire presentation, every slide, every graph. But there was a barrier between us, professional and otherwise. I set my notebook on the small table, pages filled with months of research I'd poured my nights into, and stared through the glass. Inside, David was adjusting the projector. My manager reviewing talking points. Outside, I sat in the fluorescent glare and told myself the same lie I'd told for years. It's fine. You don't need recognition. But the truth was pressing against my chest, quiet and solid. Maybe I didn't need their approval. But that didn't mean they had the right to treat me like I never existed. I tried to blend into the background like always, but the back row wasn't quiet. Interns came and went through the supply door, wheeling boxes of promotional materials, whispering under their breath. Every time it opened, I caught flashes of the boardroom, executives leaning forward, slides advancing, my manager's hand on David's shoulder like a crown of endorsement. Then the presentation began. I looked up and saw David walking to the podium, laser pointer in one hand, confidence trailing behind like smoke. He stopped just short of the screen, his reflection doubled in the monitor. Two versions of him, one credited inside, one stealing outside. Today, he said, tilting his head toward the algorithm flowchart, I'm excited to share my breakthrough innovation. I blinked. Your breakthrough? He smiled that practiced smile I'd seen since our first team meeting. The one he used before taking center stage. This revolutionary approach will transform how we process data. The words landed so smoothly I almost missed how calculated they were. My revolutionary approach. Like it was born from his mind. Like I was a footnote. For a second, I said nothing. My throat went dry, the kind of dryness that comes from swallowing too much injustice. Behind him, the CEO was leaning forward. David, this is incredible work. He didn't correct them. He wanted me to react, to interrupt, to prove I was difficult. I didn't. I just watched long enough for his confidence to solidify. You know, I thought quietly, there's always been room for both our names on this. You're the one who erased mine. The presentation continued. Slide after slide of my work, presented as his vision. Charts I'd calculated, theories I'd proven, solutions I'd debugged at 2 a.m. The audience was captivated. How did you come up with this approach? The CEO asked. David straightened, lifting his chin. It took months of deep thinking. Late nights, breakthrough moments. You know how innovation works. I let out a small breath, the kind that sounds like air escaping from a crack. Late nights. I pictured my apartment, empty coffee cups, my whiteboard covered in equations while he was at networking events. For a moment, the performance wavered. I saw a flicker of something, guilt, maybe. Then he straightened, gesturing to the next slide. The implementation strategy one developed will increase efficiency by 300%. My implementation strategy. The name hit harder than I wanted it to. I pictured my notebook again, every page filled with my problem solving and none of his input. I'm not difficult, I thought. You just never liked that I created things you couldn't understand. The applause was thunderous. The CEO stood, shaking David's hand. This deserves immediate recognition. Promotion, bonus, the works. I watched him bask in the praise, his suit catching the light, and felt the familiar burn behind my eyes. But this time, it didn't hurt the same way. It burned cleaner. When the presentation ended, I picked up my notebook from the table. The research I'd compiled over months, documented in quiet dedication. I traced the cover once, then slipped it into my bag. If they didn't want to credit me, fine. But I wasn't leaving empty-handed. Not this time. For a while, I just sat there, fingers pressed against the smooth edge of my notebook, listening to the muffled sound of congratulations leaking through the boardroom walls. It was supposed to be their celebration, a perfect victory. I imagined the CEO writing bonuses, my manager clapping awkwardly, David basking in applause, the same scene I'd watched my whole career from the sidelines. But sidelines cut. I stood up slowly. My reflection caught in the glass panel, still composed, maybe even determined if you didn't look too closely. Inside the bag, my notebook felt heavier than it should. I had documented everything carefully over months, saving every email more thoroughly than necessary. It wasn't just research. It was proof, something that could shatter the narrative David built out of lies. 2 weeks earlier, I'd started forwarding myself copies of every email, every Slack message, every piece of evidence. A harmless backup turned into preparation. David had been getting sloppy, sending messages about borrowing Maya's work and she won't mind staying in the background. He'd even joked to our manager, she's too quiet to cause problems. Perfect for behind-the-scenes stuff. My coffee had gone cold reading those messages. I hadn't planned to use that evidence until today. Before leaving the back row, I walked to the IT department 3 floors down. The security manager was a friend from my college days. She was busy with server maintenance, but not too distracted for a favor. I forwarded her the complete email thread, my original documentation, and timestamps proving my authorship. My message was clear, professional. Need this archived for the whistleblower investigation I'm filing with legal. I stepped back, checked my reflection one last time, and straightened my blazer. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady, calm in a way that felt almost foreign. Then I turned and walked toward the elevator. The San Francisco fog hit me with a rush of clarity. The bay shimmered under the afternoon light, a mirror I no longer needed to avoid. I could hear the faint echo of celebration behind me, the crowd cheering for work I no longer cared to claim. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I reached the parking garage, my footsteps echoing off concrete like punctuation. No dramatic goodbye, no confrontation, just the quiet finality of a car door closing. As I started the engine, I looked back once at the glowing tower, the silhouettes moving behind glass, and whispered to myself, let the truth find its way. Inside the boardroom, champagne still bubbled in plastic cups. A pianist played soft background music. Glasses clinked. The crowd pressed closer around David by the presentation screen. He glowed in that expensive suit, the picture of success he'd rehearsed for months. The CEO patted his shoulder once, twice, camera phones capturing everything gold. From outside through the tall windows, the scene looked like a trophy case, sealed, flawless, unreal. Then the email arrived. It happened during the after-party. An intern had been monitoring company communications, standard protocol for big announcements. Someone from legal said, "We need to review something." The CEO turned, laughing, and pulled out his phone. The subject line made him frown, urgent, intellectual property violation report. His expression changed as he scrolled. "What's this?" David leaned over. The email thread unfolded, showing months of my documented work, timestamped and detailed. Screenshots of his messages appeared in stark black text. A sentence stuck out, "Just use Maya's algorithm. She won't make a fuss about credit." The music didn't stop right away. It just faltered. The pianist missed a chord, looking up confused. David's face went pale. "This isn't, someone's trying to." The CEO didn't answer. He kept scrolling, page after page. Each message was worse than the last. Jokes about borrowing from the quiet one, plans to let Maya do the work while I take the meetings, the same confidence he'd shown minutes ago, now crumbling. "Who reported this?" he hissed. The legal director, Patricia, had been watching from across the room. When she heard the name Maya Chen whispered by HR, her expression hardened. She crossed the floor with the slow certainty of someone used to investigations. "I think you should read the documentation before you blame anyone," she said. These came with a complete paper trail. Emails, code repositories, even recorded Zoom calls. David's face drained of color. "That's not possible." The CEO's voice was low. "It's all here, David. The dates, the original files, everything." He turned to the final attachment, a screenshot of David's text to the manager. "Maya's too passive to fight back. Easy credit grab." A collective gasp rippled through the executives. Phones came out. The photographer stopped mid-shot. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." David lunged for the phone. "You can't show people that." Patricia stepped between them. "The investigation team already has copies." That was when the shouting started. Not loud at first, more like air leaving a balloon too fast. David stumbled back, his tie crooked under his collar. "No, you don't understand. She's lying. Maya, she's jealous. She's always been jealous." The CEO's jaw tightened. "Maya didn't steal anything. You did. She planted this evidence. She's vindictive. She's always been bitter about her position." "Stop." The single word cracked through the room like a gavel. "You humiliated her for months and thought no one would ever see who you really are. Every face had turned toward them now. The pianist lowered the volume. An intern asked quietly, "Should we leave?" David's perfect moment was dissolving, and he couldn't hold it together anymore. He spun toward my manager. "Do something. You knew about this." My manager, Robert, stood rigid near the refreshment table, his coffee trembling. My director looked at the floor, lips pressed tight. For once, neither defended him. "You knew," the CEO said quietly, his voice shaking now. "You knew exactly what you were doing." He reached into his briefcase, pulled out a folded document, and set it on the table. "This is a termination notice. Security will escort you out." David stared at the paper like it was a live wire. "You can't fire me over this. I built this presentation." "You didn't build anything," the CEO said. "You stole it." Someone turned off the background music entirely. The room fell into a silence so deep it buzzed in people's ears. Then came the sound the executives would remember, glass shattering as David's award hit the floor. His voice cracked. "She's behind this. Maya's behind all of it." Patricia exhaled slowly. "The only thing your colleague did was document the truth." Outside, I'd stopped at a coffee shop in the Mission, laptop open. The city hummed around me with afternoon energy. I couldn't hear every word from 20 floors up, but I heard about the commotion. It came through LinkedIn notifications, echoing across my network, followed by private messages from colleagues. The sound I'd waited my whole career to hear, not out of cruelty, but closure. Inside the boardroom, David's composure cracked completely. "You'll regret this," he shouted, voice breaking. The CEO turned away, shoulders heavy. "No, David. You will." He walked off the presentation floor, followed by Patricia, the crowd parting around them like a tide. My manager reached for David's arm. "Maybe we should discuss this privately." "Don't touch me," he cried, pulling free. "You all wanted this. You never appreciated my vision." His voice dissolved into anger. My director spoke quietly for the first time that day. "You should apologize to Maya." The word stunned everyone, even Robert. But David only laughed, a sound so bitter it didn't reach his eyes. "Apologize to her? She's not even executive material." The director shook his head slowly. "That's where you're wrong." He left it at that, turning away, shoulders sagging as he followed the crowd toward the exit. By the time security arrived and the lights dimmed, David sat alone under the fluorescent glow. His suit, once pristine, now looked wrinkled and small. The presentation remote had fallen beside his chair. The same hands that had gestured at my work now clutched air, desperate for something to hold. He never contacted me. I was already building something new. Through the coffee shop window, I watched as people hurried past on Valencia Street, conversations trailing behind them. "Did you see the data flow news? Karma's real. That poor woman." "No, the genius one, Maya." I didn't feel triumph, just quiet satisfaction. I rested my hand on my laptop keyboard and thought about the back row, the smell of coffee and disappointment, the folding chair that creaked when I shifted. How it all started with optional attendance. How it ended with the truth documented in front of everyone who had ever looked through me. Justice didn't always roar. Sometimes it whispered, "Now they see your work." The commotion faded, swallowed by the city noise. The bay went still again, glassy and calm. I closed my laptop, shouldering my bag, and walked away from the sound of David's perfect presentation collapsing behind him. By the time I reached my apartment in Oakland, the sun was beginning to set. The BART train hummed beneath me, steady and low like white noise after years of office politics I'd learned to navigate. My phone buzzed nonstop in my pocket. 12 missed calls from Robert, 5 from David, 1 from a number I didn't recognize, probably a recruiter. I didn't check any of them. The quiet was worth more than explanations. When I stepped into my apartment, it smelled faintly of jasmine and possibility. The city lights flickered across my window like code on a screen. I hung my blazer on the back of a chair and stared at it. The deep navy still flawless, untouched by the politics. It looked like armor I hadn't known I was wearing. A new message appeared from an unknown number. "Hi Maya, we heard about your situation. Are you interested in founding a startup? We'd love to discuss funding." That was the third recruiter today. They always found you when word got out. I put the phone face down on the counter and opened my laptop instead. A map of potential office spaces blinked back at me, dotted with tiny Silicon Valley locations. I picked one in Palo Alto, somewhere I could build from scratch, and clicked Schedule Tour. A company built on truth sounded like freedom. Before settling in, I stepped out onto the balcony. The Oakland air smelled cleaner than it had in years. Across the bay, the evening sun cut the skyline into gold and shadow. They could keep their apologies, their explanations, their versions of my contributions. I had my documentation now. For the first time in my career, silence didn't mean being overlooked. It meant being strategic. At my old company, I was seated in the back row. This evening, I'm planning the front office of my own startup. Same focus, different power. Back then it was invisibility. Now it's independence. Sometimes the loudest revenge isn't a confrontation. It's the sound of your own company launching successfully. They thought I'd always stay, grateful for any recognition. But I don't wait for credit anymore. I don't beg for space at someone else's table. I build my own. If you've ever had your work stolen by people who were supposed to support you, know this: documenting everything isn't paranoia. It's preparation for freedom. Tell me, have you ever had to leave a job to find your true worth?